The G20 Summit in New Delhi defied expectations on Sunday, as world leaders managed to reach a consensus on a joint declaration, but not without making compromises, particularly on the Ukraine conflict and action on climate change. The surprise consensus was a stark departure from the weeks leading up to the summit, during which sharply contrasting views on the Ukraine conflict threatened to derail the meeting. Faced with the looming risk of a significant diplomatic setback, host nation India worked diligently to coax members into agreeing on a common statement that toned down its earlier condemnation of the Ukrainian war. Russia, for its part, hailed the G20 summit as a success, with Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov echoing the sentiment.
Let me say briefly that the summit is of course an unquestionable success, first of all for the Indian presidency, but also for all of us. The G20 is experiencing, I would say, internal reform. First of all, this was manifested in the significant activation of the members of the G20 from the Global South, who, with the leading role of India, very clearly and persistently sought to take into account their interests in the agreements that the G20 discussed, and as a result, they were included in the final declaration.
However, despite extensive discussions, leaders failed to come to an agreement on a phased reduction of fossil fuels. This failure occurred even in the wake of a United Nations report released just a day earlier, which had underscored the critical importance of such reduction in achieving net zero emissions. French President Emmanuel Macron expressed disappointment, deeming the G20's efforts insufficient in addressing this pressing concern.
The global assessment of the Paris Agreement was published on Friday. We're not on the right track. To achieve this, we need to step up our commitments. And the G20 is a key player in this respect. But in this respect, I want to say that it's not enough. And I, for one, am very concerned about the spirit that is beginning to prevail, including, by the way, among the members of the G20 on the climate issue.
It is worth noting that China said it's ready to strengthen communication and cooperation to work with Europe in successfully hosting the China-European Union Summit this year. This comes after the Group of 20 Nations agreement to grant the African Union permanent membership status in the bloc, as was expected.